Okay, so we have a Noble NKB series boiler. We're not getting a good balance on the gas fuel mixtures when it's running. So we pulled this apart. It's very easy. You've got a nut on the backside there that ties into the backside of the Venturi. And then you've basically just got 4 bolts, and this bracket goes on 2 of them. You take those loose and you can kind of roll the whole thing out after you disconnect your wiring loom from your gas valve and from your fan assembly. This is all caused, we have a jet engine noise basically, so it's usually because it's dirty. This just takes 2 screws that screw in here and here to hold this guy on. Don't get this on your skin. Use some rubber gloves to deal with this thing. Do not get this on your skin. And then the burner assembly just has 3 little screws that hold that on. And you pull it off. And I've got it sitting outside here because I washed it out with a hose. So basically I took a hose on this thing, and it's got a wire mesh, and it goes on like this. You see that flat spot, so you don't just match the gasket. But you blow your water through on the outside edge in to get any kind of contaminants that are in this mesh, prohibiting that gas from blowing through in order to heat the chamber. So if this is plugged up, you're not going to get a good flame, you're not going to get good gas flow. All that stuff restricts. Similar to a furnace, if you don't have enough airflow, your motor's going to be loud because it's struggling to push. So in this case, it's pulling instead of pushing, but causing some significant noise. You just take that and reverse the process after you clean it out. Take your burner, you put it back on here. There's that flat side. You don't want to touch all this stuff with your skin either. Wear gloves the whole time you're doing this. Make sure your gasket's good. It's a good idea to have a gasket kit with you so that if this gasket or this gasket are bad, you can just replace them. The other part you want to clean is you want to take some distilled vinegar, about 1 gallon, run it through here. Do quarters, so do, if you have 1 gallon, do a quart, a quart, a quart, a quart. Let it sit a couple minutes in between each one. You just take this cap off of your condensate trap and drain it out the bottom. Usually you can catch it with a bucket or something. It was hard this case because it's all pretty tight in there. And then after that, you take about 2 gallons of water and do the same thing. You can use a hose, whatever you want to do with the water. You don't want to do a ton of pressure. You just want to get that thing to clean up. It's like a tankless water heater. Let the vinegar sit for a few minutes. Do it again, let it sit, do it again, let it sit. And then you want to try to get as much of that vinegar back out by diluting it and washing it through with water. So my rule is usually twice as much water as I used as vinegar. And it's done pretty good. And then you just reverse the process. You put it all back together, slide this back on. It's just 4 nuts. Like I said, this plate is on 2 of those nuts. And then you tighten this down, and that just holds your gas valve in place. When you take this nut off right here, it's got a little gasket in there. Don't drop the gasket. In order to do all this, you just take your skirting off on top of the boiler so that you have room to pull that whole assembly off. You can do this without, and don't forget to put your pressure switches back, or your pressure tubes back. But if you take that whole top off, then you can roll this whole thing apart. You don't have to worry about taking this off or removing it from this plate. If you look inside of here, there's a cover on this. This is a propane, so that's a propane conversion plate. It closes the gap so that we don't have too much fuel going in there. But you want to look inside of here with a flashlight when you have all this apart. Make sure that's not all plugged up too. That should not be plugged up. If it is, you might have some other issues going on that you might think about replacing that section up there so that you can clean all that out really well. If it's that plugged up, your inducer motor and everything else is probably going to have some issues. This boiler is not that old. It's just up in the county, up in the mountains, and the problem is things got sucked in through our fresh air or combustion air, came down and plugged up that metal mesh that I was showing you how to clean out. So we're just going to clean it. I redid the outside and put a cap on top there. It was open, so that should prevent more of the dusts and particles from getting into that mesh. This one was pretty dirty. A lot of times you can't even see the dirt because it's so small. When you do that burner, this all came out of the burner as soon as I took it off. A lot of times it's so fine and so small you can't even see it. You can use compressed air to clean that out, or you can use just water and a hose. Just if you use water and a hose like me, make sure to let that guy dry out before you put this all back together. Try to keep from locking moisture in here. If there's a couple drops of moisture left in there, that's fine. It'll probably drop into the heat exchanger and then out the drain for the condensate. It's not a big deal. It'll dry pretty quick since it gets so hot, but you don't want to put it back together while it's really wet. It's probably not that good for the unit. So yeah, hopefully this helps somebody. Again, this is a Lochinvar Noble boiler. This is an NKB series, just a little wall hung unit. So it's a little guy. But yeah, hopefully this helps you out, and we'll see you next time.